Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how you can capture a cabochon using coils that we make ourselves, and it ends up looking a lot more complicated than it actually is. Now if you're interested, both of these pendants will be for sale in my shop. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description box down below so you can go straight there and have a look, and also sign up for my newsletter in the meantime so you don't miss out on any future updates. Otherwise, if you want to learn how you can make this pendant, then stay tuned. So these are then the materials we're going to need. Now the wire that I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire, and the first gauge here is a 0.8mm, and then I also have a 0.6mm, which is what we're going to use to make the coils with. And then of course we'll need our cabochon. So the one that I'm using here is a teardrop shape, and it's an orange calcite gemstone cabochon, but of course you can use whatever you want to. As for the tools, we first of all need our flush cutter so we can cut our wire, of course, and then tweezers and nose pliers to help manipulate the wire. Now what I'm also going to use is my deluxe coiling gizmo. So it has a clamp where it can attach to your desk, and it has these little holes where you put in your rod. So I'm using the size of 3mm thickness, and you just put it through, and then you can make nice long coils. So I'm going to be using this as well. So you can check out the description box below the video for the material list and useful links. Otherwise, let's get all the materials and tools ready and let's get started. And it's this coiling gizmo we're going to start out using. So I've clamped it to my desk, and then I'm putting the rod through the corresponding hole. I just attach the end of my wire around the handle a couple of times, and I also leave my wire on the reel because we don't know exactly how much we're going to be using. And otherwise I just start coiling, making sure I get a nice and tight coil until I reach the whole length of the rod. And then we have the coils that we need. Now how much wire you need to coil obviously depends on the cabochon that you're using, but if you find that you don't have quite enough, you can always coil some more. Otherwise what we need to do now is just use one at a time here, and then I want to start basically opening up the coil. So instead of it being tight like this, I'm going to use my pliers, grab onto one end with one pair, and then grab on to the other end with another pair, and then you can just start gently pulling. Now don't pull too hard because we want to do it gently, and get it somewhat even, and just keep pulling at it until they start spreading open like this. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just get it as even as you can all the way along, and of course do that with all your coils. Then what I just want to do is bring in my cabochon here, and then I'm just grabbing a piece of scrap wire. You can use scrap cord as well, and I just want to find out the circumference of my cabochon because we need to make sure that the lengths of coils that we're going to cut are going to be a minimum length. So I'm just going to bring that all the way around until they meet at the top there, and then put a bend into it and straighten it back out, and then I can compare this to my coils, and I know I minimum have to cut this length on my coil, and I like to cut so there's a bit longer than that just to make sure. But what I can then do is go in and cut my lengths, and you can literally just go in and cut through the wire, and you basically separated the coil into two now, and you can just cut however many lengths you need. Now I'm going to do 4 of approximately the same length here. Then we need to cut some lengths of a 0.8mm wire here, and I have 3 of about 30 centimeters each. Now of course the length will depend on your cabochon, and I'm just going to start with one of them here. Now do make sure that they're also nice and straight so they don't have any kinks or bends. So start with one of these lengths of 0.8mm, and then I'm going to bring in 2 of my coils, and we basically need to use the 0.8mm to kind of weave our coils together, and that's why we need to open them up so they have space to basically interlock with each other. So just start from one end and start kind of interlocking them, and then putting the 0.8mm length through the space where they're going into each other, which then holds them in place together here. And you just want to gradually work your way through, making sure you catch all of the coils until we reach all the way to the other end. And once you made it all the way through, you might find that your coils here have quite a twist to them, but don't worry about that. Just go back from one end and just kind of untwist it, straighten it back out. Then we need to go back to the beginning here, and then grab another length of a 0.8mm and another coil, and then do the same thing. So just start on one end, interlock them at the beginning, then bring this wire through the point where they're interlocking, and then basically do the exact same thing. So we are making it wider now, so we're adding a 3rd coil here, and just keep feeding your wire through and interlocking the coils. Now here we're then going to have to straighten it out as we go because this is the 3rd one that we're adding. But again, just keep moving your way all the way to the other end, not missing any of the coils. So then we have this with our 3 coils. Now of course we need to add the last one as well. So the last length of coil and also the last length of the 0.8mm. You can obviously stop here if you find this to be wide enough, but I'm just going to grab that last coil and length, and then just do the same thing. Attach this on the side and make it that one more wider, and work your way through with that wire as well. So here I now have all my coils put together using those lengths of 0.8mm, and this is the length we're going to now bring around the cabochon. Now don't worry too much about the ends here because they're not even. We're going to deal with that once we've kind of shaped it around the cabochon. We can trim it off and make it fit just nicely. Then what I'm just going to do here is trim one end first of all before we start shaping it. It makes it a little bit easier. So you can see it's a little bit uneven. So I kind of want to trim the rest of them according to the shortest one. So just find the place where you need to cut. Just do one at a time and then get rid of that excess until we end up with a much straighter edge there. And then what I also just like to do is sometimes you'll find the end of the wire there, it's just slightly sticking out a little bit. So you can just grab it and bring it in towards the base wires going through, just to kind of push it a little bit more out of the way, just to avoid the risk of it sticking out anywhere and catching or scratching on anything. So you can just make sure to push in all those little ends. So I'm then going to bring in my cabochon and place it on a flat surface here, because I now want to start shaping the coils around the cabochon. So I'm just going to place the trimmed end at the top and then push it against the side of the cabochon there, and then start shaping the rest around until we obviously have the other end come all the way over and meet up at the top with the other end. And as you can see, I have excess of the coils, but I'd rather have that than too short. So we can now determine where we need to trim this other end. So we can see the point where they are starting to meet up. And then I'm just going to go in and cut through the coils on this side as well. So just do one at a time and go through all of them, obviously avoiding cutting through the base wires that are running through. And then we just want to unravel it a little bit here, because some of them can still be a little bit caught in each other. Just take your time doing that. And then we can pull these excess coils off and just put them to the side. And then we can make sure that it's right with the shape. So then we just want to make sure it fits nicely on the cabochon and the two ends meet up nicely as well. And just also be sure to push the front in over the cabochon, because that's what's going to help capture it. And then what we're going to do is intertwine the wires here at the top. So basically the wires are going to get intertwined like this, and you just want to bring them together alternating, and then we can pull them tighter together like that, and we have the shape nicely in place there, and we know that this is going to fit nicely with the cabochon. I'm then going to flip it to the back here, because I then just want to bring the back wires, the first one from one side here downwards and back out towards the side it's coming from, and then the next one is coming from the other side, and just bring that down as well, just to kind of get them out of the way. Because what I then want to do is the very next back one after that, I want to bring that upwards, so basically straight upwards like that, and then the one from the other side, that's the new back one, also bring that straight upwards. And then what we're going to do is you just kind of leave the other two out of the way for now, the two front ones, but these two that we bent straight up, we want to then use as the 0.8 mil we use through all these coils, and basically add some shorter coils to that to create the bail. So in this case here I have enough of the leftovers that I cut off, so I can just use those, and it's the same principle. We're just working with wires now that are attached to something else. So I'm just going to use these two lengths and have them go through these coils. These are already kind of connected, so I can try and go through them as they are, but obviously otherwise just go through them in the same way that I showed you before. So like that, just push them all the way through, making sure to catch each of the coils, and then you can just push it all the way down, which is then also going to help hold the top part here together and kind of fasten it in place, and just push it all the way down till it won't go any further. And now this is obviously too long to be the bail, but I'm just going to shape it, because then we'll be able to see where we need to cut it off. So I'm just going to use the mandrel that I used to actually create the coils with. So just push it forward a little bit, the bail there, and then place the mandrel behind. You can use any form of mandrel that you have. Crochet hooks are really handy as well, because they have different sizes. And then just push it over the top and push it back, and then we can see where we're going to need to cut off the excess. And just the whole time make sure that it's pushed all the way down at the front there, and then we can go in and see where that part of the bail basically meets up with the back of the frame there, and then just go in and cut off the excess just like we've done the other times. And then just remove it in the same way as well. And then I'm just gonna, just like before, make sure that these ends are tucked in rather than sticking out. And then I like to just bring these two base wires that are coming through the bail closer in. So basically tighten up the bottom of the bail there and bring them in behind the other wires, so they sit a little something like that. And then now we got to the point where all that's really left is to capture the cabochon and finish off these base wires here. So what I'm just going to do is these two wires that are coming out straight down from the bail, I'm just going to cross them over and basically have them come out a little bit to the opposite side. So the crossing ever so slightly at the top. And then these two here that are coming out from the side of the frame that we brought down as the very back ones, I'm also just going to bring them over the top of each other just to help tighten them up a little bit, and then bring them back around to where they were coming from. So basically just crossing them with each other like this, kind of intertwining them, creating almost like a little twist there, and then also start placing them into the position where I want them to sit. So for instance, these ones here coming from the bail, I want them to come not completely straight down, but be the furthest down in the middle. And then these ones here that are just twisted together come a little bit further up the side, but have just a little bit of a curve to them. And then what we have left are the two from the front there. Now what I just like to do is put the cabochon in, and then with the cabochon in place, we want to basically tighten these up. So the very back one of the two front there, I'm going to just bring it around the side of the bail, and then the other side we just want to do the same but on the other side of the bail. And then we also want to make sure we're just kind of pulling them tight, because that will tighten up the front coil there, which will then go in a bit over the cabochon, which is what's going to help capture it and stop it coming out of the front as well. So just make sure to pull that nice and tight. Just be careful, if you're only pulling on one of them at a time, you can risk pulling it through the coil there, so just be careful. And then bring them around to the back, and I'm just going to do the same with these that I did with the previous ones. So here at the back, just cross them over each other, and then this time though, I'm going to also bring them underneath the other wires and then back towards the side that they were coming from. So over each other and then under the other wires. You can do this differently. This is just how I'm doing it in this case, just to add a little bit of decoration on the back as well, but also to kind of help lock the wires in place. And these will then be the middle ones on each side. So basically what we just need to do now is just make sure we have them all in place where we want them to sit. And obviously these are going to get attached to the frame as well. And then it is time to capture the cabochon properly. So put that in place, and then to hold it in there, I'm going to just use one other length of wire at a time here. I'm just starting with the bottom ones, and we want to decide where we want it attached to the frame. I'm going to then bring it around. I find this a bit easier to do with pliers, and we need to bring it through the coils, making sure I'm just going through the coils where we have plenty of gap, but I'm making sure to catch one of the base wires, the very back base wire here as well, and then just push it through. You can just feed it through like that, and then grab the end to help them pull it. And then you just want to make sure that this wire is going to end up kind of blending in with the coils, and then just pull it tighter so it kind of gets right in between the coils there, and just make sure it's nice and tight. Now don't worry too much about the coils splitting a little bit, they will do that, but you can always adjust that afterwards. Then just want to take the other length here of those two going straight down, and then just find a place that I feel is going to be symmetrical on the other side, and then of course bring that through in the exact same way. So I've done the two bottom ones, and we just got to do the same with the rest of them. So I'm just going to move my way up one side at a time. So taking the next one up on this side, same principle, make sure we go all the way in so we catch that very back base wire going through the coils. And again, pull that through in the same way, making sure it blends in with the coil, and then just continue and repeat with the rest of them, making it as symmetrical as possible. So now I've got them all attached, so I just want to finish off the wires here. So what I'm going to do is just show you on one of them. Now I have the wire coming out on the top part of the wire that's on the back here. So I'm just going to basically put it back underneath, but making sure it coils around itself. And then I'm just going to pull that tight, and you can also just make sure to tighten that with your pliers so we get it nice and tight around the wire, and then just bring it around. We can then cut off the excess. And then of course make sure to go in and push that end down, and just continue that wrap to make sure that the end kind of goes on the inside of these wires here, almost between the wire and the cabochon, so it's nice and out of the way. And as long as you make sure you can't feel anything with your finger, it should be fine. And you just want to go around and do that with all of them. And now you might find once you've done this that some of your coils have separated a little bit, so it kind of stands out. So what you can just do is go in with your Tweezernose pliers and just tighten them back up wherever you need to, just to make it look a little bit more uniform again. So again, these wires that we brought into the frame, they blend in nicely and don't stand out too much, if at all. But otherwise, that's a cabochon fully captured. And then you're just going to add your chain through your bail there, and then you have your finished pendant ready to wear. And we get this really cool effect of all these coils capturing the cabochon, including the bail, and it looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. But like I mentioned, these pendants will be for sale in my shop. I'm going to leave a link in the description box down below straight to it. You can also there sign up for my newsletter so you don't miss any future updates. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.